What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran, and I help people using a spiritual perspective, least of all myself. So I am here today, guys, to talk about a subject pretty close to my own heart in the sense that you may understand this, but in the sense that it's difficult. It's difficult to do, right? So I'm here to talk about change. So why is it so hard to basically perform change, right? So to the caterpillar, change is easy, it's natural, it's a symptom, right? There's no mind to get in the way for the caterpillar. So change only comes in a sort of automatic sense to the caterpillar. There is no thoughts about what a butterfly might look like to them. There's no fear around the responsibilities of a butterfly, the new way of life that has to be experienced, right? The caterpillar obviously doesn't have that mental block, right? But humans do. Humans do have a mind that has thoughts, tells us all sorts of things, helps us figure out problems, helps us recognize patterns, helps us make critical decision-making skills that we can build civilizations from, where we can put strip clubs and vending machines that give us Doritos. So we have a deep intelligence within us, right? But there is a downside to that deep intelligence, and that is that it can often be used against us, right? So and this is because we have heavy emotions. We have heavy, long withstanding sort of debts of these emotions that we usually pick up from childhood and we never really get a chance to deal with. So change becomes something that I think is so difficult because it's often treated not as a symptom but as a goal, right? So the mind tends to look at things in terms of goals. So from A to B, how can I get to B, right? And what's the best way from A? So the mind looks for solutions. It looks for ways to succeed by the definitions of its own, its own metrics, its own definitive reasoning for reaching success, for getting somewhere. So change is something that is a difficult process because not only are we dealing with emotions that are basically running rampant, they are absolutely controlling our actions rather than what we would think our thoughts would be. So not only are we dealing with that, with these things that make us feel like, well, I feel like shit, so you reach for things that don't necessarily help you, but you know mentally that you can do better, that you can change, that you'd like to change, and yet you feel drawn in consistently by old habits and patterns, right? So just the other night, I was feeling particularly scared about the next step in my life, which should be nothing new for me since I'm constantly taking steps that I have no idea where I'm going, not logically anyway. And I was terrified, I'll be the first to admit. I was deathly afraid, filled with insecurities about my own being and where I fit into this sort of weird cosmic journey. How important am I to my own journey, and how much how much say do I really have when it seems that my emotions are the ones that are in control, not so much my intellect, right? So how come I can't seem to get the two together, get them to meet? So I reached for chocolate. Chocolate's my thing, right? Great in small quantities, but when you binge eat chocolate, basically comfort foods, I think that I overeat. Basically, I overate that night, and I realized lately, like, man, I have gained 10 pounds. I've gained weight, and all of last month was a difficult month for me, very hard. Emotionally, I guess I was just a little bit of a little child again. That's what it felt like. And that's kind of the crux of it all, though, is that we are all still children. And the child does not have expectations. The pain that you feel in your life is a direct result of the expectations that you have and what level they are at. If you have an expectation in your life to be someone of noteworthiness, so to become a pioneer or a legend, to leave some type of legacy, to do something important, to maybe become rich or wealthy, to have influence, power. It doesn't matter necessarily what the intention is, but the result of the life that you're looking for seems to be quite glamorous. Comes with respect, prestige, a good job, maybe a family, like maybe having sex, or maybe just lots of romantic options, and whatever it is that seems to be resonating with you, and how that fits into your life, right? So we have these expectations of people, situations, ideas, ourselves, that we often put up here, very, very high up. Maybe we don't realize how high we're putting it, but it becomes very difficult then to change, because the expectations cause us pain. The expectations to be something cause us a great deal of pain, because we care about it. We care about our expectations so much that we have now we're going to constantly fail to live up to that expectation, because not only is it causing us fear, so it's eliciting an emotional response, which again, for most of us, these emotional responses are deeply ingrained within us. Okay, it's like something we've been living with for a long time. So it takes time and patience and work of some degree, inner work, to really navigate, sort of heal them, hold space for them, and to move from them, right, back into what you would call maybe your wiser, higher self, right? Someone that isn't motivated, or I shouldn't say motivated, someone that isn't controlled by their own emotions, right? And at the same time, secondly, it causes us pain because, yeah, like I said, we care about it so much. So the more we care about something, the more it has the chance to disappoint us, the more that it can hurt us in the long run. Because a child doesn't have expectations, not usually. So a child is all right. A child does not see things in the terms of expectations. And so for them, it's easier to live in a flow. And this is something that we are all born with, this sense of flow, and yet we've forgotten it, because as soon as we reach a certain age, the age enough maybe that we were old enough to understand it, and sometimes we aren't old enough to understand these things, and we learn at a young age, right? So a lot of us, myself included, sort of have this this sort of like adultness that that happened too early in our childhood, so that we didn't really have one, maybe. So we grow up with all these adult themes, and we become cliche writers and artists and all this other stuff, and really we're just kids in pain, right? And most of us are just children in pain, regardless of what what led us to feel that way. Okay, so everybody's situation is different, and yet pretty much the same at the exact same time. So the goal of change is an expectation. The expectation that I need to change. So for me, right, we'll go back to me here, as all things should be. We'll go back to me, and I realized that overeating is a conditioned response to feel comfort, to sort of push down fear and heavy emotions that obviously I feel guilty about doing, and then I feel guilty because I realize, well, I understand with awareness what it all is, why it's happening. It's hard for me to show compassion to myself. Maybe you're the same way, right? But the expectation for me is to, well, what? Have a perfect body, have a six-pack abs. That's an ingrained idea into life, into me, so into a man, maybe, in this day and age, to have the best kind of body that you can have, right? But the truth is that I'm probably never going to have that. And I don't think I've actually readily accepted that, to be honest with you, because the expectation is to look a certain way. But when I examine the expectation, I don't necessarily think that expectation is mine. And that so often happens, is that we have these things drilled into us, and they're causing us pain. But life is pain, but it doesn't have to be so hard when you're not controlling, or you're not choosing the pain that is actually in your life. A lot of it is unconscious choices. So the actual goal of change becomes an expectation as well, because you're trying to change based on an expectation. You're trying to do something based on actually getting rid of something else. So it doesn't really become something that is a symptom. It becomes something that is a goal. So if you use change as a goal, then basically the expectation is, if you do not reach that goal, you're a failure. And so every day that you are not, quote unquote, changing, you're a failure. You're not doing it. So patience becomes the enemy to you. It becomes something that indicates failure rather than success. And so basically a good way of looking at it, hopefully you'll be able to see this, is I'm just going to sort of draw it down here. If you don't tune out, stay with me here. And we have a goal of change, right? So I've sort of put it right here. We have this goal of change, right? And hopefully it doesn't get reversed when I upload these videos. I upload these videos through like a third-party app thing, because my camera is shit, so this usually helps it be better a little bit. So I hope that doesn't flip the words, but let's say then that you are here, okay? You are here, and that is the goal of change, and it is sort of like, so basically here you are, unchanged. You're an unchanged person, because this is where you realize that you would like to change, and so you've set a goal for yourself. So the problem with that, though, is that the goal becomes an expectation, and the expectation is based on something that's usually not very true, causes us pain, and basically is something that we'd be better off without even setting in the first place. Because like I said earlier, a caterpillar doesn't have an expectation to turn into a butterfly. It only does. It just does so. So to us, we have expectations of how our life should go, the things that we should be doing, what our life should look like according to our all-powerful mind. And yet it very often doesn't go the way that we want it to. And our expectations, therefore, just causes more and more and more pain. And so just like with me, trying to change for someone else often doesn't work. Trying to change for an idea of myself that is false often doesn't work. No matter what, as long as the human puts the idea of change in the sort of forefront, away from you as a goal, as you would think driving to Chicago is the goal, then the expectation is that you're a failure, right? But just like with that Chicago example, if you're going from Boston to Chicago and your goal is to get it to Chicago, then and you don't make it for whatever reason, maybe you are run out of gas, family death makes you turn back around, or you're attacked by a loose panda bear, then what will happen is that you will consider that journey a failure. However, if you leave Boston and your expectation is to go on a road trip, then you more than likely are going to succeed in that mission, because it's just a road trip. Even if your road trip has the destination, if the goal isn't to get to Chicago, but the goal is to instead enjoy a road trip with your loved ones, your friends, whatever you're doing, maybe just your animal, your pet, your dog, something like that, then you're more than likely going to experience a feeling of happiness, success, peace. Because even if things don't go comfortably every minute of that road trip, you're still getting what you asked for. So in that sense, you chose your pain. But the goal of change, we're not really choosing our pain because the expectations are set before us. So if we remove our expectations, then we start to see things like this. So this doesn't become change so much, which I've written up here. Instead, this is the actual change. It's the in-between. It's the change occurs here. This is where change is happening. Change then, therefore, is always going to be out of your reach if you see it as a goal, right? Because you're not going to change tomorrow. The next 30 days, you're not going to change. So if you feel exactly the same way and your life's exactly the same from now, April 6th to, let's say May 6th, right? A whole month and your life is the exact same, you feel the exact same, then you realize that obviously change is seemingly impossible. But it's only impossible because of the goal. So the farther you move ahead with this goal in mind, sort of the distance grows. Because every day you're not going to see an indicator of change. Because your expectation is this idea of what change looks like. And that's different for everybody, but change often means a physical change. You've lost, for me, 10 pounds and you've gained back your health, you feel lighter, something like that. For others, change is, changing your habits, all sorts of stuff, right? Changing your habits, your beliefs, your ideas, changing the time you wake up, changing the things that you do, changing how you respond to crises. working on emotions, like whatever you think change would look like for you, whatever that change is you're trying to make, and how that would, influence the rest of your life and all areas of your life, right? We all have that idea of what change means to us in our life. So that, right, becomes sort of an impossible thing to reach, because it's, how can you get that tomorrow, right? And if you think about change as a goal, then even if it could happen tomorrow, likely you wouldn't recognize it, because you're looking for a goal where it's all laid out before you. So that sort of means to you that in the interim, it's going to be really hard. It doesn't really matter that much, because you're only looking at things from the perspective of this place over here. And so every day that you're walking towards that goal, trying to change, you're already failing, because you're trying to change. Again, the caterpillar doesn't try to change, it just does. It just changes. Expectations make you try to do things. It has this goal in mind. There's obviously this scenario that's been painted in your head, and that often, not all the time, but for a lot of people, leads to failure and sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of mentality, type of results, I should say. Because again, it's set up basically for you to fail, because it's impossible. Because if you're looking for evidence of change tomorrow, the next day, you're not going to find it. So change starts with a choice, okay? And it isn't a goal, and it isn't some faraway place, okay? Change starts with a choice, and the only choice that anybody ever needs to make about their own life, that we can fully say is within our control, within our purview, is the choice to face our pain. So if we can do that, then we can change, okay? And that's not a goal, okay? If you're just choosing to face your pain, then there's no expectations. It just means the next time you're sad, you're dealing with it. That's it. There's no goal, there's no expectation. It's just you facing your pain, okay? And so every time you do that, change then occurs as a symptom, okay? So it's not a goal anymore, right? So what does a caterpillar do? Well, essentially it chooses to face its pain, doesn't it? As a creature, as an animal, as an insect, as a species, it chooses to face its pain. The pain simply just being it's an uncomfortable process, okay? It has to face the next level of its evolution, which is going to cause discomfort. All right, now I don't know how much discomfort it physically causes a caterpillar to go into a cocoon, but it obviously affects its body, okay, because it literally changes into something else. So the same idea with humans is that change itself as a goal and expectation, no good, doesn't work. It should be a symptom. So choosing to face your pain causes, as a symptom, change to occur. And now it's not that you look at tomorrow and go, oh, well, nothing's changed, right? Because now it seems like you're failing because it's a goal. How long is it until you reach this goal of change? And how long until you're healed, right? So you have this goal of healing, so you're constantly going to be looking for things to heal. You have this goal of changing. You're constantly going to be going through bullshit that's going to make you want to change, okay? So you get rid of the goal, you get rid of the desire, and instead you make a simple choice. I'm going to face my pain, right? And so if you can do that, which is hard, I'm not saying it isn't hard, but it's far easier to do that than it is to come up with an expectation of how change should look like for you. It's far easier to just think, well, nothing else is ahead of me. The only thing I really have is just some pain and my experience of that pain. And so all you can really do is, face it. That's it. That's all you can do. So everything else becomes sort of unimportant and irrelevant to that desire. And then change happens as a result. So it becomes a symptom, right? So then the more you face your pain, the more you're changing anyway. But now the expectation isn't that you have to change because of X, Y, and Z. Because we tell that to ourselves. We create the goal because, again, change has to be something that gives us something good. So we're not changing because it's a symptom. We're changing because we want to get rid of our pain. Why do we seek enlightenment? Why do we seek spiritual enlightenment as people who are spiritual or are awakened, or however you want to phrase it? Why do we seek enlightenment? Well, the answer is 95% of the time, maybe even more, is initially that we don't want to feel pain anymore, do we? No, we don't want to feel pain. So why are we changing? Because we don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel guilty. We don't want to feel like shit anymore. But that's life, though, isn't it? Life is to feel that sometimes, not all the time, but to try and change just to get rid of something, right? You're just trying to get from point A to B again, right? So if the point of enlightenment is to remove all of your pain, then you're not making the choice that I talked about, which means you're not really changing because it's just a goal. So enlightenment isn't about removing your pain, right? There's many ways you can interpret enlightenment, the awakening process, spirituality, but it certainly, above all else, is not about removing your pain. I think as a symptom, a lot of pain is removed because we're talking about expectations now. But it should happen as a symptom, not as a goal. The goal leads to failure more often than not, certainly with people, individuals that have issues with, who blame themselves a lot, doesn't often work, okay? So if you think that you're one of those people, then try just making a simple choice to deal with your pain, and don't treat change as something that that is this goal outside of your control over there, because you're never really going to see the results that you want. So try to keep that in mind, guys. I hope this video was helpful. There's probably lots I could say about change, least of all that I am incredibly shitty at it. But the only thing that does work for me is choosing pain when I can, and that actually results to some amount of change, rather than just coming up with this goal that I'm going to change tomorrow. That's why so often people who start like diets by saying something like, well, this is the last time, it doesn't work, right? Often it fails miserably, right? Because it's not about it being the last time, right? Because that sets it up for expectations for goals, right? If this is the last time that I have a big meal and now I'm going on a diet, that's my goal, lose 10 pounds or something like that, then, anytime I have a piece of chocolate or anything, I've failed. And then you feel guilty and you regress, and now you're back here, wherever you started, and the goal of change is still so far away. That's why it doesn't work. So get clear about your expectations, sort of manage them, get rid of them, I suppose, in a sense, and just make the choice to face your pain, and everything else will be a symptom of that, I believe. Anyway. Okay, guys, well, I hope you have an enjoyable Wednesday, rest of your week, and I'll try to get back on here sooner than later. All right, guys, bye-bye.